Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Look, Wrestling 101, classes in session. Pay attention to the teachings, that's from Andrew and Derek. I mean, these guys making a killing with no competition. Dynamic duo better than the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys. Everybody make some noise, mess with them, you get destroyed. They cannot be beat, take a seat. Watch them do they thing on the MIC. Face defeat, they cannot be seen like JC. Oh my goodness, it's a killing spree. Yeah?
Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Wrestling IQ 101. I'm Andrew alongside Derek.
You.
And you can follow Wrestling IQ 101 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Wrestling IQ 101. You can listen to us right here on YouTube or find us on iTunes by typing in Wrestling IQ 101. You'll see our own banner. You'll see past episodes, new episodes like this one, and future ones coming out soon. And today we're sitting with Randy Hogan, man. How's it going, brother?
It's wonderful, brother. Absolutely wonderful. I'd be happy to be here.
Awesome. It's great to have you for sure.
Well, Randy, it's awesome to be talking to you. And, you know, it's going to be even better because coming out, you're going to be coming out our way to the Northeast and at the big event, and that is March 7th of this year. And, of course, you know, it's right in the heart of New York there in Queens. And, you know, how excited are you to get out there being part of 365 Promotions?
I tell you, D365 Promotions, it just answered the call. I haven't been up to New York. You know, I live down here in Florida in the Sunshine State, and to get a call to come up there and see some of my Randomaniacs, it's going to be absolutely wonderful. I'm so excited. Yeah, we'll be up there in Queens on the 7th, and I guess the next day, the 8th, we're going to be Wrestlefest in Albany, New York, again with D365 Promotion. And I think the 7th, also Saturday night, we're going to be at a show at the New England Wrestling Show, I think in Danbury, Connecticut or something. So we're going to be moving around that weekend.
Yeah, you got a busy weekend for sure. I mean,
absolutely.
You know, the fans now they don't have an excuse not to come see you because now you're going to be in 3 different places. So
yeah,
and I won't be getting beat up. How do you like that?
Nice.
All right.
Randomania will be running wild for sure. Definitely.
I tell you, we're gonna have autographs. We're gonna have pictures. We're gonna have T-shirts. We're gonna have just a lot of big people are gonna be there. I'm just excited to be thrown into the mix.
Yeah, and how excited were you when I saw the video dropped? You know, for you coming to a big event, and you know, if fans aren't excited about that video, it's like I don't know what's gonna make them excited because that was such a great video.
You know, I don't know who puts those things together or whatever, but I was impressed as they were. You know, I was like a kid in a candy shop. I said, "Wow, look at that!" So of course, I made all kinds of tapes of it and everything else. But I'm just totally stoked. Just the whole trip, I was so looking forward to being up there with Kevin Nasta and D365 Promotions, and we're going to have Crowbar and a lot of other stars with us, and of course there's a lot of the big boys are going to be there too. So it's definitely one of the bigger events in the country, and something that you don't want to miss.
Sure. You know, it's funny. I was thinking about this too. You know, it's been so cold here lately. We've been wanting to get down to Florida, and you're trying to come up here.
You know, that's one of my biggest questions. I was talking to you today. I said, "Well, what am I going to bring to wear?" I mean, it's 85 today. I'm thinking, do I go to the pool, the beach, or play golf tomorrow? You know, I don't know what to do. And you guys are up there freezing, so I'll have to go out and buy some clothes to wear, I guess. I don't think my shorts and flip-flops are going to cut it.
Yeah, no, it's not. Well, for us, you know, this is like normal Jersey weather, so for us, it's like, it's like spring right now for us. But anybody else who comes up here is going to be dying.
No, I was born and raised up in Detroit.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm very familiar with it. I left there when, I don't know, I was about 25, 26 years old and never looked back. Haven't been up there half a dozen times since.
Oh, man.
Wow. Because of the weather.
Nice. Now, you know, down in Florida, you know, when you stopped wrestling, you got into the restaurant business, that's right?
I did.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
I own 7 different ones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's funny. Before I started wrestling, I was in the restaurant business,
Okay.
And then gravitated from that into the wrestling, and then back into the to the restaurant business afterwards. And then I still continued to do some small shows and did TV when they were taping down here. WCW was taping at it was MGM Studios at the time at Disney World, and we do tapings there every week, and just use that for publicity for the restaurant. It worked really well. So I got remarried and sold my last restaurant about 9 years ago, and been loving life ever since.
Nice.
Wow. So, when you own a restaurant, I mean, is there a favorite dish that you like to personally cook?
Let me tell you, it's funny because I love seafood, but I don't like fish. Shrimp, scallops, lobster, great. A piece of fish, I hate. So what I had 6 out of the 7 were seafood restaurants.
Oh.
So me, I always went for the steak, prime rib. That's I'm just a meat and potato boy, from north, and the seafood just, I don't know. It's kind of like wrestling. It paid the bills, so.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely.
So I did that as much as I could, and actually when I quit wrestling full time due to an injury, and that's when I moved to Florida. I was living up in Georgia, and bought the restaurant, and then of course the newspapers pick up when you buy a restaurant, and they said, former wrestler Randy Hogan. So then I said, well, you better keep doing the Hogan thing. So I kept the hair blonde and had little 5x7 pictures. The kids come in, and I'd autograph a picture and tell them a little bit about this guy or that guy, or what's going to happen and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I was like a Ronald McDonald. The kids come home and mom and dad say, where you want to go eat? Where you want to eat today? So let's go see Randy Hogan. So all that for a nickel picture, and I get the whole family good meal. So that's kind of how that developed and carried on.
Oh, that's
awesome. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. I wish we had something like that here.
Yeah, it'd definitely be a cool experience for sure. So
I tell you, I couldn't keep up the pace anymore now.
Oh man, I bet. So how, when you said you were in the restaurant business and then you got into the wrestling business, how did you make that transformation and get started and decide you were going to be in wrestling?
Well, I'm gonna try to make a long story short for you. Okay.
Okay.
I was brought up a fan by my grandparents. Mm-hmm. My parents, they weren't really into wrestling. My dad thought it was okay. His big day was he walked out of the arena one day with Buddy Rogers, so that's all I ever heard from him. But my grandparents used to eat, live, and breathe professional wrestling. Now here I'm, I don't know, probably 5, 6 years old, whatever, and they'd take me down to the matches when they had them, which was once a month, and I don't think we ever missed them. I used to cover my face and said, is there blood in there? I was afraid of the blood and everything I'd see. But that's when you had Dick the Bruiser and the original Sheik and Ernie Ladd, Bobo Brazil, Flying Fred Curry, Bull Curry, all them old guys. I just grew up loving it, and I continued to be a fan and loved doing it forever. So here I'm getting later in years, still a fan. I was managing a restaurant, and they closed the restaurant, and I said, I've always had this interest in wrestling, and and again, this is pre computer days. Everything was kayfabe. You couldn't find anything out. So when I used to, I was up in Columbus, Georgia, played in the band too, and used to work out at Oates Gym in Columbus, Georgia. And got to meet some of the wrestlers there, Wahoo McDaniel, and of course Eddie Mansfield, who lived there in Columbus. Marty Jannetty also lived there in Columbus, and Ted and Jerry Oates, who were very big in the Southeast. So anyway, I'm down in Florida, and they closed this restaurant, and I said, I just want to see if this stuff is real or fake, as they say, or what it is. So I called Jerry Oates, and I said, Jerry, do you know anybody down here that trains people? And he said, well, Hiro Matsuda in Tampa, who trained Hogan and a bunch of the other boys, the Florida boys, but he only takes certain select ones. He said, but I do training up here too. I said, well, yeah, I knew that. So long story short, I put everything I had in my vehicle, and I left Boca Raton, Florida, and I drove back to Columbus, Georgia. And I got a job managing a po' folks restaurant, and actually that paid my way through wrestling school.
Nice.
So I started with Jerry, and I had a couple little injuries put me back. And Ted Oates had opened up a school there. And then again, Marty Janae came out of that, and a couple others. So I just went on from there. And all I wanted to do was see what this was all about. Well, through injuries and everything else, 13 months later, I was about done with my training. And they threw a match on for the Police Athletic League, just a fundraiser first thing. And put all of us students on in matches. And that was my first match. And I was just thrilled. I had tears in my eyes the first time I stepped in the ring, because it was just like a childhood dream. Here I am. So I had a match, and then, okay, now I know I'm done. So I didn't do nothing for probably 6-7 months. Went to the matches in Columbus, Georgia. NWA was there at the time. And I was winning early so I could see some of the guys coming in. And one of the guys I trained with, Wild Bill Smith, he went by. He was setting up the ring. And at the time, he said, well, they actually rented his ring, and he set it up. He said, I'm doing some little shows up here in Georgia. Why don't you come watch me? I said, I'd love to. He said, bring your stuff. And I said, no, I don't want to wrestle. I just want to come watch you. So I went a couple times with him, and it was fun. And I took my gear with me. And just a little bar away, I don't know if it was in northern Georgia somewhere, just a little place. And one day, somebody didn't show up, and I had my stuff. So the promoter says, hey, you want to work? I said, sure. So he says, okay, you're going to wrestle this guy named The Animal, and he's going to go over. Now, I was so green, going over. What does that mean? Going over the top rope? No. He's going over. That means he's going to win. Oh, okay. So, anyways, I did that. Wrestled as Randy Franklin, because my dad was Frank, so I picked the Randy Franklin. I always had the mustache. Always had the hair, so of course it was brown and everything. So he said, can you come back? And I said, yeah, I can come back. And he said, we're going to call you, you kind of look like that Hulk Hogan, who was just on his way up. He said, we're going to call you Hal Hogan. And I said, Hal Hogan? I said, I don't know who they're talking about. So I said, okay, but how about let's do Randy Hogan? He said, okay, Randy. So I went home. I was all excited. And bleached my hair, bleached it blonde. So it was long. Now I had a little bit of a look, Randy Hogan. So now I went to having a Broadway, running a draw, and some tags and some matches and that. And common courtesy when you run a match, when you work in a match with a bunch of guys, you go see them, you support them when they're little shows, and you go, and it's only right that they introduce you to the promoter and everything. So one job leads to another, and that's really, in the old days, how you got started, the independent scene. And then you work your way up, and in matches, and you get where they bring in a name, Ivan Koloff or somebody, and this was a little place in Alabama. They brought in the Action Mike Jackson, who I think's been the Alabama junior heavyweight champion for 40 years. But anyways, so I'm working with him. Mm-hmm. And I said, Mike, how do you get on TV? How do you do that? He says, well, I bring some guys up once in a while. He was like a booker's booker type of thing. So he said, I can't guarantee you'll, get on, but he said, you can ride up with us, bring your stuff in there. So same story. I did that 2 or 3 times. And J.J. Dillon was booking at the time. He says, you got your stuff over? You want to work? He says, yeah, I'd love to. So here I am, TBS Studios. Maybe got 5 or 6 matches under my belt, and I'm going to be on TV. So I'm thrilled, calling everybody I know. So I'm in a tag match the first time against the Warlord and the Barbarian. And broke my nose with a boot to the face. He threw me into the ropes, and I didn't know what was coming. So I just excited, coming off full force, not knowing what to expect. That thing I know, there's a size 15 in my face, and my nose just splattered.
Oh, man.
So that was that. So they, evidently it was okay. He said, well, you want to come back next week? And I did. So that's how I started doing TV in that every week, and then pick up shows on the side. Another one, I did some world class out in Texas, and a lot of the independents and shows here and there. And then they say, well, could you do some house shows? I said, well, sure. So now I went from doing TV, which they did 3 hours a day, doing the house shows at night. And they said, can you travel? And I said, well, yeah, I can travel too. So I started doing that with, actually, we started with Jim Crockett's NWA. Then when Ted Turner bought it and turned it into WCW, they let a lot of the enhancement guys, or the journeymen, or the carpenters, or the jobbers, whatever you want to call them, a lot of them go. Because, at that time it was just get beat and do what you're supposed to do. But they, Eric Bischoff came in, Jim Hurd and that, and they wanted people that could actually wrestle, getting the opportunity. So it was almost like an audition we got. And they kept us on that, that knew how to work, I guess, and we're trained properly. And then me and George South and the Italian Stallion, just a bunch of guys, good workers. And we traveled together and wrestled together for a lot of years.
Nice.
And being in Georgia, and freelancing, we work for anybody. So I did a lot of work with Continental over in Birmingham, Alabama, which Robert Fuller and Ron Fuller and those guys were over there. And then I was in a match with Rick Steiner, ripped out my shoulder, and that was pretty much it. So that's when I said, I need to recuperate, because I was in the cast for a while. Moved down to Florida, and said, okay, well, now what I'm going to do, because I'm getting older and everything. So I said, I'm going to buy a restaurant. So I bought a restaurant. Then I bought a second restaurant. Then I bought a third restaurant. And then I got divorced and lost the second and third restaurant. And kept the first one. Anyway, it just did on and on. And then again, it goes back to when trying to keep the Randy Hogan name alive for publicity and everything else and that. I got back and started doing TV again when they started doing it at Disney, because I was in Lakeland, Florida, which is only about an hour away. And that was it. That's the whole life story.
That's pretty interesting that you've had such a quite a story career. One person who I really admire, but he's always outspoken, is Jim Cornette. How was it like meeting him?
I love Jimmy Cornette. Jimmy Cornette off the air was just like Jimmy Cornette on the air.
Yeah.
I mean, he's fun. He's so quick-witted.
Yeah, that's true.
He's got a great, a lot of people, they're very controversial. Some people love him, some people hate him.
Yeah.
He's got him, just like Paul Heyman. They have great minds for the business. And there's maybe a handful of guys that you come across that really know the in and the outs of the business. And I think it helped people, especially like me, being able to work with them and just talk to them in locker rooms and that, because you learn things that you're not going to learn in a school. You're only going to learn through experience from other people.
Sure.
Again, the old art of storytelling, and how you can work 3 or 4 holes for a whole match and make it believable. And the heel's getting beat up, out the arena door. He's got to be chaperoned, and the baby makes a little comeback and got blood all over his face. But it's just storytelling, and it led from match to match to match. And that's what a lot of the old timers miss. And I think the majority will say, we love the product. The athlete can now do stuff that we wouldn't think of doing. But there's an element of the art, I think, that has been maybe not lost, but replaced with the wrestlers themselves as far as the character development. Look at the old days. Bruno Sammartino had the world title up there for, 7 years, I think, 8 years?
Yeah.
Hogan had it a long time here. Going back to the Lou Fez, Vern Gagne of the AWA. When you saw a world champion, of course, the Ric Flairs, you didn't see them every week because they actually traveled. They were world champions. Now, sometimes every few months you got a different champion coming in. They're just kind of going side by side, and there's no deep storylines going on. Down here, the storylines we had were with Kevin Sullivan and Dusty Rhodes. That was one of the bigger feuds down here. And it would go on TV, and it would carry into the different house shows, and then we'd come up to a big show, and then there was a part of the story when somebody else would get involved, and the story would continue on. Nowadays, us old guys kind of miss that storytelling.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting that you said that. You know, I was listening.
If you think about it, a lot of guys. You didn't have a lot of the big muscle men.
Yeah.
Way back in the day, you had like a Sailor Art Thomas, who was a big, muscular guy, and very far and few between. Now, everybody's a bodybuilder. Mm. Everybody looks good. Everybody does a dozen high spots in a match, and they lose their effect. You know, remember the old days when a cross-body block, which now a cross-body is anything, it's nothing, it's just routine. That used to be a finishing maneuver.
Yeah.
Anything you did off the top rope was a finishing maneuver. Now, you know, you got guys flipping and dropping 30 feet through ladders and chairs and stuff. We didn't think of doing stuff back then. But back then you had the big brawlers, like I said, the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser, and even San Martino was a pretty stout guy, you know. Ivan Koloff, all those guys were big, stout, not bodybuilder, pretty boys, but believable, very believable. You know, when they went out there to swing a chair, they swang a chair, and they smack you in the head with a chair, the 2x4 or whatever. Nowadays, you know, so many rules, don't hit them in the head, don't do this, don't do that. And I understand with all the concussions and that, because the kids are doing all this crazy stuff. They're just cutting their career short. So, I don't know, but that's kind of what us old guys miss, is the storytelling. Tune in next week to see what's going to happen. You can't wait to tune in.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you got pay-per-views that aren't special anymore. I mean, WrestleMania is a big name and everything, but when you look at the matches, they're the same ones you saw at a Royal Rumble or a SmackDown or anything else, you know. And then when they decided to do away with WCW and WWE was pretty much the only game in town. You know, you had some upstarts try, like TNA, which now Impact and that, but they just don't have the clout. They just don't have the following. But like I said, that's as far as us old guys, we miss some of the old stuff, some of the old barroom brawling as it was.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I was listening to you know, Stone Cold's podcast with Jerry the King Lawler, and he literally said the same exact thing that you just said. You know, that, you know, the guys are very talented. It's just, you know, they don't tell the story. They're just looking for the big pops and stuff like that. And, you know, that's what was missing today.
Did you know that Jerry was a self-taught wrestler?
No, I didn't know that.
Self-taught. Didn't go to school, take lessons, just got involved with the right people, learned on his own. And he is probably one of the top 4 or 5 people as far as throwing punches. You watch Jerry Lawler throw punches, and they were great-looking punches.
Yeah.
Him, Terry Funk was another one. Down here, Bob Cook, one of the best. And nowadays, you know, they catch it. They catch it on tape a lot, where, you know, guys are just swinging wildly, and they're just swinging at the air, and I guess afraid to make too much contact. I don't know. Yeah. It's just not always what it was. But again, it's not being bitter, and it's not saying, oh, we miss all the old days, because now these guys are doing things that we would never think of doing.
Yeah.
There's a lot more gymnastics involved now. You know, with all the flips and the twists and the 360s and a lot of the. I think that's the influence a lot from both from the Japanese and the Mexican wrestlers.
The Lucha Libres.
A lot of the different things, you know.
Yeah.
Things is even the schools are teaching differently now. We've got a couple of schools down here that I go visit once in a while and see the kids, and I don't say anything, but I'm thinking, well, why are they teaching them this instead of that? You know, but it's just a different game, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why some of us just have to. We hang up our boots. Of course, we get old too, but I don't care how old you get, because I'm getting pretty old too. But you always think in your mind, got one more match. So, who knows?
Yeah, you know, if you were gonna have one more match, who's somebody that impresses you nowadays that you maybe feel that itch that you would want to wrestle?
Oh wow, that's a tough one. I'm definitely not prepared for that one. You know who I think would be fun, and I think is a totally unused talent, is Dolph Ziggler.
Oh yeah, I love him.
Dolph can talk. He's got a look. He's got an attitude, but he's just, I don't know why they just won't give him a little push.
Yeah.
But he would be good to work. But he runs circles around me, you know? So that's the only thing. Now, back in the day, you know, in my prime or whatever, gosh, I've worked just about any of them. But Dolph Ziggler is probably the most impressive to me right now. And I'll tell you the one who went the farthest with the least is The Miz.
Yeah, no, that's for sure, definitely.
You know, he's always on the edge there. People always like to see him. He's a great personality. He's doing good on his TV show and that. He really got a lot. You notice how many wrestlers now are turning to movies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wide open. The Miz has made a few of them. Randy Orton, you know, Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns is in there. Of course, the Rock, Stone Cold. There's so many of them. Back in the day, we didn't have those opportunities.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You know,
especially starting out. I used to work in it was actually, we had matches once a month at an auction house. They cleared it off as an auction house in Plant City, Florida. And every month up there, at the time, Rocky Johnson wrestled there with us. And his little kid, Dwayne, who was at the University of Miami at the time, used to come and watch us. We would all just sit in the locker room and talk all the time. And Rocky gave me one statement for kids starting out. He said, you know, it's every kid's dream. He said, a six-pack, a ring rat, and a $25 payoff. And I said, well, that was Rocky Johnson. Bless his heart. He was absolutely wonderful. And I see where The Rock grew up as a good, normal person, too. Didn't go to his head. He's not getting in trouble. You know, I just read again one of the old guys, not that old, but WCW guys now got arrested for fraud and racketeering and all kinds of other stuff, drugs and stuff, distribution. He's going away for a long time. Such a shame, you know. I think that was just last week I read that.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I saw that too, and I think he was going to be at one of these events coming up, and they had to pull him. It was quite a shame.
Yes.
You know.
Same guy. Yep, it was.
Yeah. You know, but
and it's a shame.
Yeah, it is. You know, especially if you're.
And that was another guy that was good looking. He was big. He was muscular. He could work, but for whatever the reason, they just never gave that gimmick a chance. Mm-hmm. And I think guys just can't take that. You know, it's like guys are on top that as they start slipping down, does something to the head. I guess they're not popular no more. I don't know. They believe in the character.
Sure.
You know, one thing, a couple of years ago, if you remember, Hulk Hogan had the video that came out that he sued TMZ and everybody for, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is all common stuff. And he said something. They were talking about, what somebody can video and what they can show in public and what they can't. And he said, he says, when I'm in my house, I'm Terry Bollea. When I step out of my house, then I'm Hulk Hogan. So in my house, I have a right to my privacy. He could separate Terry Bollea from Hulk Hogan. A lot of people can't, but a lot of guys can't. So it's just a shame. It takes its toll. There's been so many old guys that have gone through problems of that. It's funny because remember the wrestlers come out with Mickey Rourke, the wrestler?
Yeah.
A few years back.
Randy the Ram.
Story about a wrestler that was right on top.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because there's a big parallel with me there. He was on top of the world, which I never was, but his name was Randy. My name was Randy. He continued to wrestle past his prime, which I did. He had a very severe heart attack, should never wrestle again, but he did. I did the same thing. And then I stopped, and he never did. And eventually, he killed you. So, some guys just got to realize that it's a job, and you work your job, and you retire, then you retire. Some guys don't know when to hang up the boots, or they just can't let go of that glory day, I guess.
Yeah, that's for sure.
We've lost so many of them to drugs and things. It's a shame, but the steroid scandal, remember when that started, again, back in Hogan's day?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was wrapped up in that. But, there was not pressure to take steroids, but you were told, you can't look like the boy next door.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a believable wrestler, you got to look like a wrestler. Well, how do I do that with my genetics? Well, that's why people turn to it. And then the worst thing about steroids back then was they worked. That was the worst thing.
Yeah.
So people said, well, okay, I'll take a little bit more. I'll take a little bit more. They didn't realize, 20 years later, they realized that it's killing their kidneys and their organs, and, it puts you in a wheelchair. There's been past world champions. I'm not telling stories out of school, but look what happened with Lex Luger. Luger was a monster, and he ended up in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
About 180 pounds, Turned his life around for the right things, but you didn't know, and there was always this pressure to do that. And nowadays, supposedly they cleaned it up, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It means nothing. Just an old school look on it,
Yeah.
Back in the day, we really didn't have those. That was a new thing, So all we did was eat all we could and work as hard as we could in the gym, get all the protein we could and amino acids and all the natural things, and do the best with what we had. Nowadays, take a shot every 7 days, and all you got to do is maintain.
Yeah.
I get an old school view, a young problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Hear you on that.
Randy, you've been in the ring with so many of the top wrestlers in the world, from Vader with Harley Race in his corner, Sting, Larry Sabisco, the Road Warriors, Nasty Boys, Abdullah the Butcher. I mean,
he's a monster.
Yeah, looking back,
him and Vader were my toughest matches.
Really, that's what I was just gonna ask you.
As far as legit getting really hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Let me ask you, because there's such a difference between like Vader, right? He's a big brawling bad guy, and then you have Sting, who's a fan favorite. How do you have to adjust your style per match? Because you're just having a one-off with these guys, right? Sometimes, and fans sometimes want to cheer you if you're facing a big opponent like Vader, or they want to boo you if you're hurting their favorite like Sting, right?
Yes. But back in the day, realistically, if I was going against Vader or Sting, they know I'm going to get my butt whipped.
Sure.
Okay? So there's more heckling. I think that's in between. The cheers and the boos was more the heckling, But yeah, I was in. I didn't heel an awful lot because I wasn't good at healing. I was good in the ring as a heel, but I couldn't carry it outside the ring. The thing is they always say, the old guys, you got to live the gimmick. You know, if you're in a grocery store and somebody comes up to you and you're a bad guy, you're not going to be nice, sweet, friendly, patting them on the head, kissing the baby and stuff.
Yeah.
Get away from me, kid. You know, you had to live it. Now they don't live it. Vader pretty much lived it. Abdullah was, how do I put Abby into words? He's definitely not like the character he portrayed in real life, but he was tough. These old guys in the ring, when they're in there, you know, you're getting paid to do something. If they're going to hit you, especially like Vader, if he's going to punch you, he hits you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the YouTube matches I'm in there with him, and he used to wear those like MMA gloves or something, whatever. Well, they didn't soften nothing, and he popped you upside your head really good. So he got me in the corner, and he's like beating me down. So I'm going down, and then he starts beating me up.
Oh, man.
So I went down to the corner of the ring. I got up the corner of the ring, and then of course he does that monkey splash or whatever it is off the ropes, and comes down full force. So that's 400 pounds on little, 215-pound kid. But it was rough.
Yeah.
Abdullah, he was something else. I wrestled him a couple of times.
Oh, man.
Now I guess a lot of the matches there's a lot of not choreography, but move to move. Some people talk out the whole match. Back then you didn't see somebody sometimes until it was just time to get into the ring. So when I'm with Abdullah, and he's with one time he was with Gary Hart, and he had, I don't know, the U.S. title or something, and I didn't know what was going to happen. He comes running across the ring with a belt, hits me right in the head with the belt. I mean, hard, damn, this guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's definitely
Yeah, but his attitude after the match. It's funny because I was doing TV. I think it was at Continental in Birmingham then. Anyways, I wrestled him in the first hour, and I wrestled Butch Reed on the third hour of taping. Mm-hmm. So Abdullah, on top of everything else, just beat me with a kendo stick. Just whipped me down. And go back in the locker room. I said, God, you about that stick? He smiled, was smoking a cigar, and said, it's good for the business. And that was the attitude. Whatever's good for the business. Mm-hmm. So the third question, I'm wrestling Butch Reed, and he gets me up in a bear hug, and the camera's behind me. You can just see the whelps all across my back. It was just classic. But again, I think it was just tougher back then. Now somebody strikes their ankle or something, they're off for a month or 2 months with pay or whatever. Well, that's when you get beat up, and we got nothing.
Oh,
you better heal.
Yeah, no, just like in the 80s and the 90s, like a lot of wrestlers, they bounce back and forth between WCW and the WWF at the time. Yes. What were like the differences for you, being in WCW, and because when you kind of switched over to WWF, you dropped the Hogan persona and you got to be yourself, and how. Well,
yeah, pretty much every different association, unless you were a name that had something to carry with you, you had to kind of reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
But there's always a difference in the locker rooms. There's just an air. Sometimes you'll go in like down here, which was part of Crockett, Championship Wrestling from Florida with Gordon Soley and all them. You go in the locker room and guys be playing cards, and it was just like, hi, how you doing? Day at work, clock in, here we go,
Yeah.
WWE, a little bit more stuffy. WCW was kind of right in between, WCW was, I hate to call it a little more lax, but you had a little more freedom, leeway. Back then, you always had somebody. You had somebody out in the gorilla position, which is like the guy who told you to go to the ring, whatever else. You had somebody in the locker room watching the monitor, saying, "Okay, get ready, you're up next," whatever. Talking about a finish. And WCW had Grizzly Boone was there, and Blackjack Mulligan was working. The locker room was pretty much run by Kevin Sullivan, and you could talk to these guys, and it was a friendly atmosphere. It wasn't just a cold business type thing. The few things in WWE that I came across was just a little bit stricter, I think. Maybe because I wasn't as regular there, But it was the stuffier locker room. Some of the best promotions, I think, were the ones that from the time you walked in the locker room to you went to the ring, you were relaxed. You knew you had a job, and you knew that your bosses, the promoters or whoever, they had confidence in you to do your job, and they let you do your job. There was no such thing as a scripted promo. You just went on the fly and you did it. Some guys were great at it, like Dustin Rhodes, and others couldn't talk their way out of a paper bag. And, of course, they usually had managers for that reason. But difference in the locker rooms is, I think the wrestlers themselves, I think, are all about the same. It's just not the politics, but the structure of each locker room is different. And you've got to be able to adjust.
Got you. Yeah. And, at that time as well, building up to, the rivalry between WCW and, WWE. Do you think nowadays, like, with the emergence of, AEW, that, they have a chance to remake that feud and, create, the competition that's been lacking since that time?
I would like to think that it would, but past history tells me that a lot of things have started only to go by the wayside. Mid-South was big at one time. It was a territory, and they tried to branch out on their own, didn't work. Then you had TNA, come in, and they got over here and went up. They were doing Universal Studios down here, TV taping, and right next door in Disney, they were doing WCW.
Sure. Ring of Honor.
Everybody had a little more money to pay, so that's how they would get some of the guys over.
Sure.
But what happened is they never recouped those dollars. And, TNA brought in Bischoff, and they had Hogan there, and Scott Hall, and a whole bunch of them, and they paid them big money. Well, it just didn't have enough time to catch on, to get their roots settled. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, they're out of business, and Dixie Carter comes in and does what. Now, she's a sweet lady, but she did what she could do and surrounded herself not always with the best people. And it's just the same. It just surprised me with WCW, though. It really did, because they had the talent. For a long time, they were winning those wars and everything else. But something happened, and there's all kinds of rumors to what it was, and I have no idea, but to be on top and then all of a sudden to sell out to Vince, I think it kind of hurts the business, because now it's a monopoly. I mean, now you've got SmackDown and Raw trying to be individual brands, and now the little farm league NXT, they're making a major player into that too now,
Yeah.
But they're all controlled by Vince.
Sure.
Which is good for Vince, but the problem is, I live about 20 minutes from the Performance Center down here in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And they all go through that Performance Center, whether they're experienced wrestlers or they're new ones just hired. And they're all taught basically the same things, the same mentality, the same WWE concept of what they want to do and everything else. And it's been very successful for Vince. And I just don't see any of these other ones having the background or the money behind them to sustain it. I mean, Ted Turner had a bunch of bucks, okay, but that didn't help him.
Sure.
And now you got Khan that's got AEW, with a bunch of bucks. You got the Jaguars, like the Jacksonville football teams and everything. There's a lot of money right now, but there's a time in business they're going to want to return on this investment. And they're bringing in these names, and they're going international now with matches and stuff. And I don't know. I would like to think that there's going to be a good rivalry, a good competition again. But I really, in my heart, don't think it's ever going to happen. I think it's just going to kind of fade away. I don't think wrestling will ever completely be gone. But I don't think in another 20 years it's going to look like the wrestling of today, just like it doesn't look like the wrestling of 30 years ago.
Yeah, no,
Sure.
I think that's for sure. Something that's interesting, you were in Dustin Rhodes' first match, and nowadays he's with AEW and he's still going strong.
Yep.
How does it feel, just to see someone that you were there at the beginning of his career, and he's one of the vets
great.
still going.
He lived about 15 minutes from here, and I'd see him in the grocery store every once in a while. And we talk. There's a whole bunch of people who live within my area here.
Mm-hmm.
And saw him coming up, and I went through it when Dusty was in his last days, and Cody. I tell you, that kid surprised me. Cody didn't have the skills that Dustin did, but he had a mind for the business every bit as good as Dustin, or better. Dustin got in that WWE thing with Gold Dust and made a lot of money off it and everything else, but then they put him out to pasture. And before that happened to Cody, he says, wait a minute, I'm out of here. There's better things for me out there. So he dug in, did a little independent thing, but just sought out that he was raised with wrestling and values, and Dustin was, from Dusty. So he had a lot of old school ideas and ways, and how he got connected, I have no idea. But then, he grabs the Young Bucks, some other guys, and gets a hold of Tony Khan, and somehow now they got this mega AEW thing, and they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
But I don't see him growing anymore. I see him kind of plateaued all of a sudden. I don't know. Jericho is still the anchor there, no matter what they say. Kenny Omega is really good, but I think he's going to end up in the WWE. I think. That's what's going to happen because for longevity. Because I don't think anybody believes that AEW will be around forever, just like any of the other ones. So they'll get in, try to make a name for themselves, hopefully be politically neutral. So when the opportunity comes up, WWE will open their doors for them. They talk about how many stars of other associations go to WWE and turn into nothings and a waste of talent, and it's a shame. Rick Rude, a classic example. He was a world champion at TNA. He was good. James Storm went through the training center, and I think he did a couple of NXT things and says, well, I'm out of here,
Yeah.
But a lot of those guys just never got to live up or push their potential, I think, like they did within the smaller associations. But, money talks.
Sure. Nowadays, Randy, there's a lot of women killing it out there. What are some of the women that you like to watch when you're spectating wrestling?
Well, it's funny because I had no interest in women's wrestling whatsoever until about a year ago, when actually the women started, quote unquote, wrestling. They weren't just the eye candy.
Yeah.
You had like Natalia, okay? Well, she learned how to wrestle from her dad. Now you got Charlotte Flair, who's greatness, but she gets it from her father.
Mm-hmm.
Roddy Piper's kid now, she's getting into it. And then I hear today the Rock's daughter got signed. She's down here in the Performance Center getting ready to go. So all these second, third generation that were brought up in the old school of wrestling are actually embracing the art of wrestling again. They're not just in there doing cartwheels and seeing who can wear the skimpiest outfits. So now that don't mean they don't still look good. But I like Charlotte Flair a lot. Mainly because of her, I guess, the attitude she has.
Sure.
I like Becky Lynch. I think she's really good too. Natalia is going to be an old workhorse. She's going to be the Iron Mike Sharp, I think, of the women's division. Asuka, I don't know.
Yeah.
The language barrier, she knows how to wrestle, but the Japanese style that she's great at, she can't use over here. And the fact that her English, it's cute to listen to her try to cut a promo a little bit, but that gets really old when you don't know what she's talking about. So she's in there now and she does some moves and she screams. That's about it. Sure. Tessa Blanchard, a little controversy going on there, but again, she's second generation and she knows how to wrestle. Santana Garrett from down here is doing real good.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good pick.
And I don't see much of the Ring of Honor or anything here, but anyways, those names are going to be around. Flair's going to be around forever. I think Becky Lynch probably will too. Mm-hmm. But Flair's just like her old band. She's always going to land on her feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Were you ever worried about maybe like getting heat with Hulk Hogan? When you adopted his name and stuff like that, and maybe a little bit of his persona?
To this very day.
Really?
Oh, yeah?
It's funny because when he jumped to WCW, they did this big press conference, at Disney.
Sure.
And I was wrestling, but at the time I was also working for a radio station. I did a little 1-minute spot on Saturday afternoons about stuff you read on a dirt sheet, And so when he did that, they actually sent me as a reporter, and it got picked up in some of the sheets that Randy Hogan was there acting as reporter. Well, I wasn't acting as a reporter. I really was. I'm right in front of the stage, and he's up on stage with Jimmy Hart and that, and he looked down at me and looked again, and he kind of winked and nodded his head. That was it.
Okay.
So I said, wow, that was cool, But, I never... It's funny because people don't always realize that a lot of the characters are invented by the promoters or the bookers, whatever. I wasn't Randy Hogan. I didn't want nothing to do with a Hogan. This guy says you look like Hulk Hogan, so we're going to call you Hal Hogan. We're going to call you Randy Hogan. Bleach your hair blonde. Now you kind of look like him. You got a dark tan. You're littler, but you could be his nephew. You could be his cousin. You could be his brother. So wherever I went, I was whatever. It's showbiz. I'll be whatever you want me to be. And that's what I was. So, but as far as any one-on-one slams or anything, I don't. He knows of me, but it's not the kind of things that he would acknowledge one way or the other.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And he only lives about an hour from me, so.
Look at that. See, we never got the match we deserved. Randy Hogan versus Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, but I go to his shop. He's got two gift shops down here, one in Clearwater, one in Orlando.
Nice.
Uh-huh.
And I go there and take pictures and stuff, and, I've got Randomania T-shirts that are similar to his Hulkamania shirts. So,
oh, man.
Yeah,
living the gimmick every day.
Yeah.
But no, he has never said anything, whatever else. I don't know what I would do if I was at one of these WrestleCons or something, and all of a sudden he come up to my table. That'd be kind of freaky.
You gotta
so I probably won't be WrestleMania week at WrestleCon here in Tampa.
You gotta do like the Hogan and Rock, where you just stare each other down and look opposite ways around you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Well, you know, and again, I like I said, that's why I never portrayed myself as being anything than what I am.
Yeah.
You know, I've never said I'm his brother, I'm his cousin. You know, we're brothers in the business, I guess you could say. But
Sure.
you know, I never did that. So, but the promoters, it's a different thing. I've been just about everything. You know,
Sure.
man.
whatever they want to.
Now, when
That's what they just say. Pin me, pay me. You know.
yeah, no,
A lot of
seriously.
people say that.
Now, I'll ask, my final question to wrap up. You and Hulk Hogan, who has the bigger pythons?
Oh, me, definitely.
Good answer. I love it.
Absolutely. And all you got to do is show up at the big event in Queens on March the 7th and find out.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be right there in LaGuardia Hotel over there. And, of course,
Yes.
a fantastic facility. We went a couple of years ago, Derek and I there. And, of course, that's going to be March 7th, and you're going to be right there in Queens, New York. And you have a whole weekend full with Damage 365 promotions. If people want to get in touch with them, for...
Yeah, pre-sales are going strong. They're going strong.
Sure.
I heard a rumor again just yesterday. Said they're expecting to sell out. So if you're able, just hit the d365promotion.com and they'll take care of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't want to miss that event because, Randy, you're going to be there all weekend long. You have you just told us you're going to be in New York for the next 3 days after.
I will be hanging, banging, styling, and profiling all weekend.
Sure. And I know people can't wait to see you. Where can people get you on social media if they want to hang out with Randy Hogan?
Just go on Facebook to Randy Hogan.
All right, simple.
Nice
And
and
it'll
easy.
show up. Yeah.
Definitely.
So I'm going to create another page that's strictly for wrestling, but this is this shows a lot of the life of wrestling and the life after wrestling. So
Awesome, man.
Awesome.
Well, can't wait to
it's
see you.
open, and they can friend request me, whatever else. Like I said, the more random maniacs I get, the better off it is. So
Sure, Randall Mania is still running wild, and of course,
still running wild.
Yeah.
and we really like to thank you for taking up the time and talking with us here at Wrestling IQ 101, and amazing insight from things that you've seen over the years and continue to see now.
Oh, thank you.
And for us, this has been Wrestling IQ 101. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Wrestling IQ 101. You can subscribe right here on YouTube or search us on iTunes by typing in Wrestling IQ 101. You can see episodes like this one, some past ones, and of course, the future episodes are coming soon. And stay tuned, guys. We'll see you soon.
We're out.